Mhm, mhm.
How's Assassin's Creed going?
Oh, dude, I love it. So good. I love it more and more the more hours I'm getting into. I'm probably like 11 hours in now.
I haven't watched any of it because I want to play it for myself when it does come out,
It's really
or
good.
when I do get it.
I'm loving each of the weapons, and the stealth is by far the best stealth they've ever had. I'm building now way into a full like assassin. I like the new skill tree they do. You can really specialize in things now way more than before. Before it would kind of give you like sort of specializations, but they all be kind of grouped the same. Now it's like distinct 4 or 5 different categories. They're like, you want to be an assassin, it's right here. You want to be stabby with a sword, it's here. So they made it very cut and dry and copy and paste, whatever phrase I'm trying to use. Why is this not popping up? Come on, live stream. There it is. There it is. Josh is here already. You're right on time, buddy. You were like 30 minutes late yesterday, so you're back on your game. We're doing pre-show testing right now.
Test for the pre-show.
Okay. Let me get my my notes back up. Oh no, not do that. No, why is Discord vanishing? Do that.
Actually, let me do something real quick.
Oh, back. Oh no. Lost my back support. All right. There we go.
Say it isn't so.
Say it ain't so. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah. Oh wait, I gotta change the screen. That would have been bad. The whole show on the green screen.
Stream starts now. Anytime. Just right now.
I'll make sure you eat your mic because it really does lose its.
Nom 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 nom.
Yeah,
nom.
that's perfect.
Perfect.
Welcome everybody. No, that's not very good. Welcome everybody to the BatShtCrazy podcast. Today we are doing season 3 of the Clone Wars, continuing our retrospective journey. This season, the tone is much darker, I would say, overall than any of the previous two. And this is where the show starts taking its shift towards what is one of the best shows ever made. In the beginning, we're going to do more of an episode by episode breakdown this time around, because this is where it really gets in the nitty gritty. We start off with an episode called Clone Cadets, which you see, was it Domino Squad? Yeah.
Domino Squad.
Yes, and they're training. You got Heavy, Cut Up, Droid Bait, Fives, and Echo. They seem to be a bad batch and are unable to work as a team. Shock T and drill instructors Brick and L. Less debate the cadets' fate. The clones learn to work together and accept their destiny as soldiers, with the help of defective clone 99, I believe. This episode wasn't anything, I don't know, kind of your cut and dry, like, we can't work as a team, we need to figure this out kind of thing. But it did have a setup for future events as far as personalities of these particular clones. Go ahead, Kat.
Yeah. So interesting note about this story is chronologically in canon, it actually takes place sometime before or during season one. This is kind of like a backstory for characters we've already known, Heavy and Fives and Echo specifically. Um, and yeah, one of the cool things we get to see from this, it is a little cut and dry. I wouldn't say this show specifically or this episode specifically gives way to anything truly greater, except that we do get to see a little bit of how the clones train on Camino. And we get to see a little bit of what their cadet life is sort of like. It's very reminiscent in a way of Starship Troopers, where they're going through basic training, and you get to see like their day to day and stuff like that. So it's cool to see. And of course, there's several, several callbacks later on in the future to this. But yeah, you get to see a little bit of clone Republic Grand Army basic training, so to speak. So it's kind of cool. Again, like what they did with the last season is just building on the allure for these established units inside of Star Wars. And yeah, like you said, uh, Clone 99, or as he's nicknamed, just 99. He is a defective, genetically just kind of like messed up. He's basically the Danny DeVito to Arnold Schwarzenegger in this. He's the bad twin.
Yeah. That is not the comparison I was thinking you would make, but yeah, it works.
Bringing it all the way back.
Is it all you got?
For this one, yeah. I mean, I got more on the Attack of Camino, which I believe is next.
Yeah. So that leads into the episode 2, which is called Arc Troopers. The Republic learns of an impending separatist attack on Camino. Anakin and Obi-Wan hurry to the planet after the Republic refuses or repulses the separatist visceral assault. The real attack begins. Asajj Ventress, General Grievous, and an army of droids rise out of the oceans, bent on destroying Camino's clone production facilities. Rex, Cody, Fives, and Echo lead the clones in a desperate defense of their home planet. This was a really cool episode.
This is a great episode. I think noteworthy in this episode is this is the first mission that General Grievous and Asajj Ventress they meet for the first time in person. Asajj was Dooku's assassin, and Grievous was. So in a way, they're both kind of apprentices to Dooku,
I
not
want to call him
Dooku.
Dooku now.
It's Dooku from now on. Uh, Microtransgressions and Dooku. That's what we contribute to the world. So yeah, in a way, they're both apprentice to Dooku, and but they also have official capacities within the Separatist military. So it's cool to see them get their first mission together, and I mean, they both survived. Asajj is very kiss of death, lady mistress of murder type, and General Grievous is very status quo for General Grievous. We get to see the passion the clones have for what they consider to be their home world, their home planet of Camino, and we get to see them fight for something other than the Republic. They're kind of doing this for themselves, which was cool. Um, I think this was the introduction to the Aqua Droids, the first
You're right.
because the whole plan was they were gonna shoot this armada towards the planet, knowing that it was going to get shot down, and they were going to rebuild the ships in the water and come up and take Camino from the bottom. And Obi-Wan figured that out, and it didn't go anywhere after that. The assault fails, um, and we get the death of 99,
Mm-hmm.
and we get a little Anakin versus Ventress action. And
Yep.
she's trying to steal the premise of the episode. The reason they're attacking Camino is the goal is to steal the Jango Fett DNA so they can't make any more clones, kind of like shutting it down at the source. There's a separatist plot, and Ventress gets the DNA, and she almost escapes. She gets to do a little tussle with Anakin. She loses, and Anakin's got her cornered with the clones, and she's like, "Are you gonna arrest me?" And Anakin goes, "Actually, I was just gonna have the clones kill you." So you get to see a little bit of ruthless, war criminal Anakin in this too, which is awesome.
That was pretty cool. I think you also get her killing, Ventress killing Commander Colt, right? The kiss of death kind
Yep.
of thing. That was pretty
Yep.
brutal for that.
Yeah, yeah. That was one of the more shockingly violent for a cartoon. Like that was one of the first moments I think we're presented with this is a kid show.
I think that was
Question kill
originally
head kill.
censored in the original running. I think that was censored in that, and then added back later in the Disney Plus reruns because it was too
That might have
violent
been, yeah, because they
for
did
Cartoon Network.
re-release a couple different things. Yep.
Um, from there, go to the next episode, Supply Lines, which the summary of that is Ryloth is under siege. Trapped on the surface, Jedi Master D rallies the local forces with the help of Cham Syndulla. Desperate to save them, the Jedi Council dispatches Senator Organa and Representative Jar Jar Binks to the planet Toydaria. Did I say that right? Where they are to
Yep.
convince the neutral agent, King Katunko, to send aid to Ryloth. Bail and Jar Jar must convince Toydaria that their cause is just, but before it's too late. Trade Federation envoy Lot Dud, this is some names, attempts to prevent the Toydarians from giving up their neutrality. Katunko follows his conscience and secretly aids the Republic, which Jar Jar is able to keep secret. That's a surprise from the snooping Trade Federation agents with his intimidable distractions. What do you think of this episode?
I don't have a lot to think on this episode. It wasn't very memorable for me, except that Jar Jar is boss and gets pulled out when they need to get stuff done.
He does not.
My man, Mr. Binks, when the Senate comes a calling, he comes and answering and delivers his results. You know why? Because Jar Jar's a great freaking character, and I will die on that hill.
Yeah, that's enough on that one then. We can go on and on about the Jar Jar.
We can
Yeah.
absolutely go on, but this is the first. On a real note, this is the first in this season. This season deals a lot with politics. We see politics come up a lot in this season, and we get to see the inner workings of was it just war all the way through, or was there attempts at peace? Like how did the Senate play a role in the galactic civil war, so to speak? And this is kind of ground zero for that foundational work, and we get to see obviously Jar Jar, but it's almost got more weight to it because we also get to see Bail Organa go out on a mission. And as I mean, Alderaan and Naboo, very, very close allies. They get stuff done. They're known for their democratic process. So, yeah, this is more just building lore into the background, but no, it's not a particularly memorable episode. And other than Jar Jar being a badass, I've got nothing for you.
Yeah, that was kind of a gloss over. So it moves us into sphere of influence, which there's not a whole lot going on here. We have a kind of your standard abduction. Daughters are kidnapped. Ahsoka is kind of the one put in charge of getting them back. To track down the kidnapper, Greedo, of course. And there's also a blockade that Ahsoka manages to break up.
Yeah, we get to see your girl,
Mm-hmm.
Ahsoka. She really comes into much in the same way that in Attack of the Clones, Anakin was given his own mission to protect the Senator. Ahsoka's given her own solo mission to I thought there was more to it than that. I thought there was a whole separatist plot to undermine Mandalore's status of neutrality. I thought there was some kind of black market deal going on. I thought weren't there some like kids poisoned or something like that? But essentially, Ahsoka goes in as a Jedi neutral like educator, but
Yeah, she
she's
does have to. She has
secretly
to
there
teach while also being, yeah, try to be a leader
undercover.
while
Yeah.
being young. Yeah, there was a whole plot line there. It's like the first time you
hmm
see Ahsoka take a step forward in her progression of the character again, and her having to deal with the pressure of being by herself, which culminates later in later seasons.
Sorry, we have a visitor. Um, yeah. You got any more on that one? Your your lady Ahsoka?
No, she still hasn't got to her big breakouts yet, but um, it was a good episode. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and we get to go back to Mandalore and we get to see the Duchess Satine some more. And I mean, it's always a good day when you get to see a little bit of Mandalore. So
Yeah,
yeah, good, good. Also not memorable.
no. Um, the next episode you have is the assassin episode, tasked to protect Senator Amidala during a political mission to Alderaan. Ahsoka Tano is plagued by reoccurring visions of a recently deceased bounty hunter. Unable to clear her mind, Ahsoka worries that the stress of the conflict is finally getting to her, and her visions indeed prove um, prophetic. Padme narrowly avoids death while attempts to assassinate her. Together, Padme and Ahsoka trap the hunter, and Ahsoka discovers a true villain behind the plot to kill Padme. Zero the Hutt. So this is where we get into our bigger story arc of the season.
Yeah. So Zero. This is a callback to the animated movie that kicked it all off, and I think we might have seen him once or twice in previous seasons. I think he was featured in last season when Boba Fett went to jail. But Zero is the cousin nephew. He's related to Jabba somehow,
Cousin.
and the Hutts are a really interesting. Not species, but they're a really interesting influence on Star Wars because where Star Wars has always been this good guy versus bad guy sort of thing, you have the Hutts that are kind of like the Corleones. They're the head of the mob five families of Star Wars. And so yeah, you get a little bit of that underworld type stuff there. And ultimately Zero is part of the family that's not getting the blessing of the Godfather before he's going ahead and doing things. So some stuff gets taken care of in house, a little outside of the Jedi's hands, which is interesting to see.
And these next three episodes kind of all meld into one, where you have the Cad Bane capturing 3PO, looking for information, um, memory wiping of the droids. Oh, brother. That's what Zero is. Prison brother. Um, yeah, you have Cat Bane's storyline. You have then the hunt for Zero. But yeah, those three all kind of roll into one. You have the make a daring escape. I don't remember this being an overly like engaging plot line, but
No, it just took a while.
yeah, it
Yeah.
did. It was kind of one of those that, I mean, was there anything memorable that stands out to you in that, as far as, I mean, outside of seeing more Cad Bane?
No, not really. And every now and then they do that, and it's usually because season 3 holds other goodies in store. We're not just glossing over all of season 3. The best is yet to come, but it's not uncommon for the show to give us these multi-episode arcs that really have nothing to do with anything, just more background for you, more context of what's going on in the universe. And that's what these episodes do for me. They just kind of they fill that gap. Didn't really need it filled, but there it is.
Yeah, and then the next little bit here you have is the deal with the Night Sisters. You have next three episodes about um, kind of exploring that planet a little bit, seeing their very
Definitely.
demented ways. So yeah, you want to expand on that one before we get into your favorite part of
Absolutely.
this whole season.
This is one of my favorites because uh, a little context. Dathomir is the planet where Darth Maul is from. Uh, it's home to the Zabrak, well, a tribe of Zabrak, which is Darth Maul's species, as well as the Night Sisters, who I've always thought were so enigmatic, and they were such an interesting addition to Star Wars because certainly in the live action films in the original trilogy, you had the Force, and the Force was mystical, and the Force was mysterious. And the Force was always kind of set up to be this universe's version of magic. So I thought, enter the Night Sisters, and you find out that magic, in addition to the Force, is also very real in the Star Wars universe. And the Night Sisters are more or less a coven, a species that is a coven of like dark witches who can use dark force powers to a limited extent, but it's more about sorcery. And so these next couple episodes, I see you, these next couple episodes really deal with the sorcery aspect. Go ahead. Just
I
ducking
love
do
that.
it.
I love that button. No, all I was gonna say is it's interesting how they put magic in the show because in one way you could argue that would ruin Star Wars because it's very conflicting, but they do it in a way the show goes it's weird because the sisters seem incredibly powerful, but yet it's clear when Dooku shows up, they're all scared of him and they know he can destroy
Yeah.
them very easily. So that they make a point to, and even in Ahsoka's show, we'll kind of jump around. Even there, the witches are powerful and they have their purpose, but they don't seem to have an overwhelming physical power as far as combat goes. Their combat prowess seems greatly diminished compared to a Jedi or Sith because they're clearly afraid of either one wiping them out because Dooku basically what they stated Dooku could wipe them all out, the remainder of them. So one Jedi and one Sith could do that much damage. They seem to have their role and they seem to try to form an alliance more than they do singular power. Because that's a good way to do it because magic could be, you could get it. There are obviously exceptions because you have what is her name in Jedi Fallen Order and or whatever it is.
Oh, the love interest. Yeah, Mirda. No,
Yeah. So
Meriden.
and they do have yeah,
Yeah.
and she is a obviously a badass character and can kill people very assassin like, but she's still clearly not as powerful as Cal. So I think it's
Right.
established lore that they're not on the same level. So it was a good way to do it. But yeah, that was all I wanted to add. Tricky thing to do,
Yeah. No, and
but it was
it's
cool.
not that they're not capable because certainly they are. With I mean Darth Maul. I mean I know he leaves the Phantom Menace kind of unspectacularly at the end of the Duel of the Fates. Um, but Darth Maul is credited as being one of the more powerful Sith Lords that came around, and Sidious himself said that his loss was legitimately a loss. He envisioned enacting his plan with Darth Maul. So, and then you have Ventress herself, who's a Night Sister. So, like, the physical prowess isn't limited, I'd say, by the species so much as their tradition. Because
Yep.
when you watch the episodes and you see them fight, they're not using blasters or lightsabers or even force imbued weapons. They're using, like, laser bow and arrow, and they're using staff weapons and stuff like that. So they're a spacefaring race, but they're very limited, I think, by their tradition as to what. So it's kind of it's interesting to see them. It's like rejecting technology for the sake of magic in its own way. But yeah, we get to see Dathomir for the first time, and I would say this story arc does such a phenomenal job at establishing Dathomir for all of Star Wars because because Dathomir comes up later in different formats and different medias, and I remember the first Jedi game with Cal. What you mean? I get the option to go to Dathomir? Of course, I'm going to do that. And there's excitement there, and I think that goes back to this set of episodes. And this arc, we get to see Dathomir because Doku, he he has trained Asajj Ventress to this point where Sidious is worried that he's begun training an apprentice, and so Sidious was like, "Hey, get rid of her. You're the apprentice. You're not the master. You gotta knock this stuff off. Get rid of her." And so Dooku does. He executes an assassination order, and she's on the outs with Dooku. Uh, she did something to fail him for the last time, and she's done. She's no longer in the cool kids club for the Separatists, and so she goes back home to Dathomir, and we get introduced to the Night Sisters and to Mother Talson, the Night Mother. We get to see and from there, a plan is hatched uh, to take out Dooku because they are worried about Dooku's reprisal because they know they can't stand up to a Sith Lord. They know they can't stand up to the entirety of the Separatist army. So they hatch a plot to kill Dooku. And Dooku comes to them because now he needs a new apprentice, a new assassin. And so Sidious sends him to Dathomir. He's like, "Well, you lost one Night Sister. Why don't you go get another?" So Sidious sends Dooku to the same place that he got Maul. And we find a character named Savage Opress, who is Darth Maul's brother.
Go
And
figure.
so they train Darth Maul's brother, which is a really cool sadistic training. There's like a group of 10 of them in the selection process, and only Savage lives to be Ventress's assassin. And the plan is to have him be loyal to the Night Sisters, get close to Dooku as his apprentice, and take him out. That's the plan. That's not what happens.
Never is.
Uh, no, it's not. And I'm a little hazy on when Savage enters to actually fulfill his role as assassin, but there's a really cool scene with Ventress and some of her Night Sisters uh, trying to assassinate Dooku first.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I don't recall the timeline in that, but yeah, that is a really cool scene.
Um, so, for anyone, spoilers, I guess, um, Asajj and a couple other Night Sisters sneak into Dooku's bed chambers at night, and the dude is in pajamas.
Not just any
I'm talking
pajamas.
this. I'm talking the Santa Claus Scott Kelvin embroidered silky smooth jammies. The dude is in jammies meditating for the night. They tranquilize him and like blind him or something like that so his senses are dulled, and it's a 3-on-1, and in his pajamas Count Dooku takes on 3 assassins and wins.
This was a
Epic. And
real
then he
turning
thinks,
point for his character.
and well, it really is. This is when you realize, oh, Count Dooku's kind of a badass. That's awesome.
Hmm. Yeah, I love this segment because Dooku's, I think, one of the coolest characters in the show, and
Yes.
it really makes you, especially after all the battles you see between him and Obi-Wan and Anakin, that if you watch Revenge of the Sith with all that in mind, you really could probably split that fight evenly, half and half, and Dooku would
Hmm.
probably win at least 5 of them out of 10. If Dooku would just have not goaded Anakin as much and been, I think, maybe too confident based on his previous wins, I think there would have been a better fight on hand. But yeah, you see how great even Dooku is at his age, just how powerful,
Oh
and
yeah.
it
Well,
makes him a real threat. And that's what they try to
he's
establish in the show.
He's definitely credited as one of the best duelists of his time, and he certainly is all the way up until the beginning of Revenge of the Sith. But yeah, he takes on three assassins blind and wins in his pajamas, and then he takes on both Asajj as well as Savage Opress later and wins. And they just couldn't do it. And they couldn't seal the deal. They could not assassinate Count Dooku. He was too powerful, and he did it in his pajamas. So at the end of this arc, we kind of say goodbye to Savage Opress for a little while. He goes back to Dathomir to meet with Mother Taliesin, who is the one that gave him his, shall we call it, force cocktail to make him the size of a building. And she sends him on a mission to go find his long lost brother in what I think is probably the best reveal for a character since Darth Vader said, "I'm your father," because we find out that the person he's going to go look for is Darth Maul, who last time we saw him, he got chopped in half and sent down a hole of nowhere. So that was, I remember as a kid watching that, freaking out because I was like, "No way, Darth Maul! Like Darth Maul's back." Uh, Josh is over in our chat saying Darth freaking Maul, and I'm like, "Yeah, man, Darth freaking Maul." And so that's pretty much the culmination of the Dooku Pajami Dathomir run, and man, that's one of the best stories, not just this season, but I think in the show. And I'm so happy we're there because it's so cool to revisit.
Oh, but that's not your favorite part, yo. It's right to come next.
I
From
know
here, from
it
here.
gets better.
Also, if I'm Dooku's age, I better have pajamas like that. I'm just saying. I want my like
There's
custom
nothing
initials
from.
on them.
I
Soft
mean,
and
there's
silky
nothing
smooth.
stopping you from buying them now.
It's
You just
true.
go for it.
Effort is
Get the channel logo on there instead of the embroidery.
could. Yeah. Do a new pajama
I'm thinking,
line.
yeah, I'm thinking something in a nice like navy blue.
Oh, of course you are. With some yellow trim, huh?
I was thinking gray.
Okay.
Got to have that gray trim.
That's
Maybe
fair enough.
silver, blue and silver.
Yeah. So from there, we go to our Mortis arc, which I know you're going to have a whole lot to say. So I'm just going to sit back, relax, and enjoy your deep dive here. Because you texted
What
me
is the
pages of
Mortis
this.
arc?
I think you do. You have the how does that whole thing start? How do they end up on the island?
Okay.
Oh, see, he's ready.
So, I was ready. I was ready for you. Okay. Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka are out flying in Anakin's piece of crap ship. Lovely, Zach. Lovely. Show the people. Show the good people. Give them a close up. Yes. And then later, tell us how you're going to paint it. So anyway, our heroes, our Holy Trinity, are out exploring the galaxy. I think they are responding to some kind of distress call or something. And when they come across a mysterious floating anomaly in space, it's no moon. It looks like a space station. And so they get uh, beamed, whammied. There's a bright flash of light, and they get woken up, and they're on a planet. So we're led to believe that maybe this space station floating orb thing or pyramid thing in space just becomes a planet, which makes sense later down the line because it's all the Force. The planet they're now on is called Mortis, and right away the three of them know something's up. Their comms not working. They've got a memory loss issue. The planet feels unusually strong in the Force. The first person they come across is the Force goddess, the embodiment, the physical embodiment of the light side, known only as the daughter. And she has got all. This was really funny because both Anakin and Obi-Wan hit on her immediately, which was great. Filoni forgot what their character arcs were for a second, and he just went for it, and I loved it. Um, she starts questioning Anakin about being the chosen one, which immediately puts Ahsoka and Obi-Wan on protective defensive mode. Nobody plays with my boy. Nobody plays with my master. Like, get away from the chosen one. It's cute to see those little Chihuahua guard dogs go nuts. So they follow the daughter. She's going to take them to her father, who is like the main dude, and they're cut off from one another in a rock slide. And they get separated. Anakin continues on with the daughter, and Obi-Wan and Ahsoka go back to the ship. The ship ends up missing, and they come face to face with the son, who is the embodiment of the dark side. And later on, this planet does some weird things to their heads. Obi-Wan has a conversation with Qui-Gon, so we think. Ahsoka has a conversation with her future self, warning her that she's going to turn to the dark side if she sticks around with Anakin. Anakin has a conversation with his mom. Turns out to be the son. That was creepy. Anakin meets the father. The father is more or less God in the Star Wars universe. And so the chosen one comes face to face with Star Wars God. And it's interesting because Star Wars God was just like, hey, I wanted to see if the prophecy was true myself. Now, there's a whole deep lore with, they're called the Ones, and the father, the son, the daughter. The father maintains the balance between his two children, the embodiment of the light side, the embodiment of the dark side. And the whole reason he wanted to pull Anakin in is because Anakin's supposed to enforce balance as the chosen one. This arc shows us that Anakin truly is the chosen one. And all kinds of, it's a 3-episode arc, all kinds of crazy things happen. We see Ahsoka turn to the dark side. We see Anakin
Oh, that
become
was
Darth
so
Vader,
good.
really.
I wish they would have
We
pushed that
see
farther.
Oh, that would have
Just
been
a bit.
cool. We see we see Anakin force both the light side and the dark side to their knees, proving once and for all that he is the chosen one because he brought balance to the two children. And so there's all kinds of self-fulfilling prophecies in this whole arc. Everything amazing that happens in it just births in canon the larger universe of Star Wars. It gives us the concept of the not just the living force, but like the universal force, the cosmic force, and that there are beings beyond Jedi, beyond Sith. There are things that go just beyond everything that George Lucas ever intended, and that comes back later on. We see all these things come back for Ahsoka in live action. The Trinity, the Father, Son, the Daughter. These are characters pulled over from the expanded universe that deals with Abeloth and Luke Skywalker's Legends adventures. And so, yeah, this whole arc on so many great things. And we can, if you want to point out different parts of of different episodes that you loved, like Anakin being tempted and seeing a vision of his future self and why he thinks he needs to stop it and how, or talk about Obi-Wan almost getting ripped apart by the owl beast, the
Right.
beast forms for the son and the daughter. Those were awesome too.
See, I took a slightly different thought process with this. Initially, I actually did not like this. I liked the stuff in the episode. I didn't like the concept of the three of them existing. And I still don't to a degree. I sort of how I view it, I guess, in my head to make it kind of fit with what I like is that the events were real, but it was more the force kind of manifesting all this stuff. The daughter, the son, the father thing. They don't really exist. They were a almost a test of sorts. Because I don't know, they just seem kind of too Harry Potter stuff going on for me. It was just too much. Like what? Like all of it didn't make a whole lot of sense. I liked the learning lessons and the Qui-Gon interaction, seeing Ahsoka go evil, which I wish they would have made even longer because the voice actor did a really good job there of making her kind of really seem sadistic. But I like the whole concept of the arc, but the characters themselves, I'm just like, I don't know. Does that really make a whole lot of sense? I don't know. It's still kind of it depends how what you're looking at things because they um or what you play more, what you read a lot of because the force changes a lot in different mediums. As far as like old Republic era, you have a lot of the Kreia kind of thought process where the force is just you don't have any free will and it's kind of always directing the show and other arcs where it's kind of like it's just there but it just binds us all together so it all shifts and changes and this was definitely a shift. I don't know if it's what I like, but I do appreciate everything that happened within it. I liked Qui-Gon coming back, seeing him in a physical ghost again. That was pretty cool. Um, I liked watching the temptations of Ahsoka and Anakin, seeing him get angry, and yeah, there's a lot of foreshadowing. It was really cool. Um, yeah, it was a great arc. I just still inflicted on
Yeah.
the characters themselves.
So what I like about, I mean, the characters, the father, son, daughter, they are absolutely real as of Star Wars Rebels, because
Yeah,
the mural, the three depicted are on the mural that grants Ezra access to the world between worlds. And then again in Ahsoka at the end of the season, we see Balin's skull standing on another galaxy on a statue of the father, very Lord of the Rings esque, with the son and the destroyed statue of the daughter next to her. And we see, the daughter when she passes away, she becomes kind of like an owl, an avatar of the light that follows Ahsoka around. And we see the owl come back up again in the end of that series as well, right before we see Anakin's Force Ghost. Um, so they're very much real in this universe, but that's one of the crazy things. That is the big swing. That's the big leap because you're right. Depending on which Star Wars, which novel series, which game series, which cartoons you're watching, the forces or movies you're watching, the force is depicted several ways. But this is their first big swing into something bigger that's going to pay off later. Because after this arc, we more or less are led to believe that the father, son, daughter are all deceased. And after this arc, they don't come back again until one of the latter seasons of Rebels. And then we don't get it again until several years later at the very end of live action Ahsoka. So it's really only brought up three times. And it was a big swing on their part. I think they were playing the long game. I think this is something maybe they were hopeful that they could revisit in the future, but they left themselves an out on the off
yeah,
chance that
I
it
think so
didn't
too.
pan out so well. Which is kind of like, is it real or is it not? But I think the intent was definitely to have it real, and they've gone ahead and added it into the lore in canon, which is great. But yeah, I love that Liam Neeson came back. You know, every time you hear Qui Gon talking, it is Liam Neeson. He's like Samuel L. Jackson. They're both very on the record. They're like, yeah, call me back for Star Wars. I'll do it for free. So I think it was really cool to see that, and with that, you get to hear Obi-Wan. You know, hey man, I tried. You told me to train Anakin, and I tried. This kid is a nightmare. You know, I did my best, and it's important for you to know that I tried. And so it's it's really cool to see Obi-Wan get an opportunity to talk to Qui-Gon like that because we see from Empire Strikes Back, we know Force Ghosts, whether you like them or not, they're real. They're out there. But we never see Force Ghost in the prequels, and we always wondered why Qui-Gon didn't disappear like Obi-Wan and Yoda did. We thought that was just a thing Jedi did. And Clone Wars explains, and I think it kind of starts here. In the second to last season of Clone Wars, it explains that that's not something that Jedi just know how to do. You have to train for it. And Qui-Gon, I think he was able to talk to Obi-Wan and kind of start the train because the Mortis arc, because the gods of Mortis wanted to find out about the Chosen One. I think, in a way, this gave the Jedi the ability to start the Force Ghost thing.
Yeah, because I mean, Yoda alludes to it, I guess, in Revenge of the Sith with um, learning how to communicate. So maybe there was some sort of bridge between
Yeah.
Yoda teaching Qui-Gon, possibly something in that effect, because it seems like, which would make, I guess, sense. Yoda was stronger in the Force, so maybe there was some. We don't really know how Qui-Gon gets to the point he does where he can become a Force ghost, but um, they did it subtly over the years. But yeah, I think this arc was cool, and I'm not saying I can't come around on it with more stuff added. At the time, it was so jarring. It just was. I just don't see that what their role is exactly, because before up to this point, it was Anakin is the chosen one. He was bring balance to the Force, but people didn't understand that balance to the Force meant light and dark, and he had to do both sides of the spectrum to achieve that balance, which makes sense. But then, if these people exist, why don't they just keep the balance, and what's their job, kind of thing? They don't really. I don't see
Yeah,
why.
it
Why is
doesn't
there a
go into it.
prophecy? Who makes the prophecy? Are they not in charge of the Force? So that's what thing. They would have to iron out some stuff with that to make it gel. And I think that's, I mean, Dave's had some misses lately, but I think Dave is one to do that as far as look and make it all make sense to where there's not going to be a gaping plot hole like that, where, like, why is there a prophecy if these people are here, and doesn't that undermine the entire, which I'm sure Dave's going to take into consideration, and or maybe Sam Whitmer will just fix it all at a table discussion.
I mean, he plays the sun, so
Yeah, he plays everything at this
he's our
point.
dark side. He's our dark side guy. He's the voice of Palpatine, Darth Maul, the Sun, and Starkiller.
Yeah, and I think this kind of doesn't quite, it's not one for one here, but the between the Night Sisters, the Mortis arc, and the World Between Worlds, it's all their attempts to make Star Wars slightly more magical and mystical in a way that it never was previously, which is a bold move. The World Between Worlds is still kind of I would say it's not totally fleshed out yet. It's just kind of it's in its infancy, but I think there's potential for a cool Ahsoka time cop kind of thing, where it's, as long as they don't overdo it, and you could also do a whole what if series based on, I think we talked about that. So yeah, there's a lot of potential, I think, for where this season in particular sets up some of that groundwork for the future of Star Wars, which could be very different from your old school stuff.
Well, and two, because that's not really the world between worlds is not touched on until Rebels, and we know it almost feels like they introduced that concept because they wanted a reason, a continuity reason to be able to fix certain things. If you go back and you watch the episode where Ezra, Palpatine is chasing Ezra through the world between worlds, um, and Ezra pulls Ahsoka out of the fight into the world. He saves her life. If you go back and you watch that scene, you watch what Ezra does. Vader had her. She was dead. He was gonna kill her. Ezra changed history by pulling Ahsoka out right before Vader's lightsaber could hit. It's a scene I've watched. Oh man, I can't even tell you how many times. But yeah, he had her. He was gonna murder Ahsoka. Ezra saved her life, and the rest is history. She goes back to where she was pulled out. Not obviously not at the same time, but the same location,
Was she gonna
and she
fall?
survives, and the rest
I'm
is
trying to
history.
remember that exactly. Because didn't the ground break beneath her? Isn't that what happened? He was bearing down, and her foot
Yeah.
broke through
So
something. And did he pull her through as she was falling? Is that what happened?
yeah. Yep. He pulled her through at the very last minute, and Vader fell, and she didn't. But and I think that's one of the reasons she's so. We're jumping now, but
Yeah.
one of the reasons
All
she's
right.
so radically different in Ahsoka is because yeah, Anakin almost killed her, and she had to live with that afterwards. Like she lost. He was going to kill her.
Well, I don't think
I
that's
think that's why
why.
she was so
I
broken.
I think it's more the point that he is Vader in the first place is probably why her finding out
That's
that
good.
that.
That's probably yeah.
But
But anyway, yeah, Mortis arc. We're introduced to Star Wars' versions of Holy Trinity of Force gods, and they die. And Anakin is confirmed to be the chosen one because he was able to bring balance to the light and the dark embodiment, physical embodiments. So, yeah, it's cool. I thought it was cool. It leads into the bigger question of what else does Star Wars have to offer as far as mysticism and mythology and a larger world outside the Jedi and the Sith. So it's cool, and I think it's a good way for them to change certain things that happened in episodes, everything after six, and so yeah, uh, I really like this arc. I think it's fantastic. I yeah. Definitely watch it. One of the highlights of the show for me.
and then this season wraps up with after that whole big climactic situation, you go to the Citadel, which is this impenetrable prison, and Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, Anakin all have to free a captive Jedi general. Um, the only thing I remember from this mission being overly memorable was the interaction between Anakin and Tarkin specifically, who was there's almost an admiration there, and you see that relationship as far as why, because a lot of people who watch the original series will go, why does Tarkin boss around Darth Vader, and why does he listen to him? And I think Dave picked up on some of that and almost gives you a reason in this episode where Tarkin is just normal Tarkin, just younger, but at the same time, he is a master strategist, and you see Anakin, who also is a very good commander in his own right. I think he respects Tarkin for that, and that carries over as Darth Vader to where it all makes sense now. I think that's pretty evident in this. I don't know what if anything else happened here that was more than just a prison heist, but
Yeah, there were a couple nods to the original trilogy in this. Obviously, Tarkin, we're introduced to his younger self for the first time in Clone Wars, and we find out that he's not just an Imperial high up just for the sake of the movies. We find out that like a lot of the officers in the Imperial Navy, they started on the Republic side. And so, in a nutshell, we, with the Citadel, we acknowledge the history of the expanded universe. And we go to a place controlled by the Separatists, formerly the Republic. Um, this is a prison that was designed to hold Jedi. This prison is an old prison left over from some kind of old war, whether that be Old Republic or Mandalorian War or whatever. This prison was specifically designed to hold Jedi, and the Separatists have it. Now there were two high high price high stake hostages that they were being held at the Citadel, which was the whole reason we went there. One of them was Jedi Master Peel, who we saw in Phantom Menace sitting on the High Council. So again, you get to see Filoni and George pull that random dude that was just in that one scene for 20 seconds or 2 seconds or whatever, and give him a backstory. So when we find General Peel and his admiral, his naval commander Tarkin, and those two are captured and imprisoned because they hold two pieces of vital information for the war for the Republic. And the Separatists are planning on holding them, interrogating them, getting this information. And so the Jedi launch a desperate rescue mission to save them. A couple notable things in this. This was originally supposed to be an Anakin and Obi-Wan type of deal with Plo Koon on standby to send in the cavalry if needed. And Ahsoka was told very, very specifically she wasn't supposed to go.
Figure.
And just like her master, Ahsoka promptly said, "No, I'm going to go anyway." And it's cool because the way they are smuggled into the Citadel, they are frozen in carbonite, which was an awesome nod to Empire Strikes Back. That's how, in a way, that kind of explains why Vader is so non-caring about putting Han Solo in it. It's because he lived through it. He knew Han Solo was going to survive carbonite because he already survived carbonite. He's like, it's not a big deal. You just go to sleep, you wake up, no big deal. And so, as a cool nod to that, we see Ahsoka disobeying orders, and Ahsoka goes down on the planet with Anakin and Obi-Wan. And it turns out they needed her because she was the only one small enough to sneak into a little hidey hole to get past some kind of defense they didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as she becomes an essential part of the mission, they end up rescuing Tarkin. But Jedi Master Peel dies, and he gives Ahsoka the information to relay, and it's a 3 episode arc. You see a lot of heavy clone losses. One of the big main cast characters we lose is Echo.
Mm-hmm.
He dies on the platform in a very self-sacrificing move. So we lose Echo, and uh, yeah, they end up completing the mission though. We lose the Jedi and we lose Echo. But at the end of the way he conducted himself, the way he thought on the fly, the way he prioritized things, earns Anakin Tarkin's respect. And vice versa. Anakin loves how on point, on mission, and so yeah, they do. By the end of this rescue mission, develop a mutual respect for each other, which again nods and carries over into their years in the Empire. But yeah, it was a good episode. We get to see couple nods to the original trilogy. We get to see Plo Koon. That's always awesome. He comes in and saves the day. We get to see Tarkin. We're introduced to a younger version of him. We get to see some background lore with the Citadel and some more things from the expanded universe pulled into canon. So it's always a good time.
Yeah. Yeah. This show starts really picking up after this. This is when you first get the traction started and you see the Anakin, Ahsoka, even Obi-Wan. They're getting stronger, more powerful each episode. And yeah, it's really cool.
Mhm.
Where does season 4 pick up? Do you know?
I'm not positive. I'll have to look at my recap, or maybe I'll just watch it. I'm not sure. But yeah, season 4 is this season 3. I would say after rewatching a couple episodes and reviewing the episode summaries, this is the season. This is almost like the first 2 seasons were almost like the warm up, and this was the pilot for the show that would come. Because season 4 really does. We still get a couple goofy episodes. We got uh, a whole Water Wars thing around the corner, and we've got some droid things around the corner, but we deal with some like really mature themes, and we run into some of the more serious tones of the war and of Star Wars in general, and it all kind of starts here. And the Dathomir arc was a huge prelude, and the Citadel with the losses and the consequence of loss. Even back to the beginning, where you got the death of 99, the clone DeVito, and
That's kind of
yeah,
stuck in my head.
this is yeah, and forever. This is the prelude for the greatest of the show that's coming. And in a way, I don't want to say you got to watch the first 3 seasons for it to get good, because obviously they all have their merits. Like really, now that we're through the first 3 seasons, we get into like more of the grown up cartoon that is
Yeah,
Star
it,
Wars: The
it gets
Clone Wars.
progressively darker from here on out, and I think a lot of that is portrayed through Ahsoka's character. For a lot of it, you see her get
Mm-hmm.
progressively less campy, happy, sticky kind of until she becomes more quiet, reserved, and you see almost like a not depressed, but you can see the weight of the show is bearing on her specifically because she has a lot
Mhm.
of the animated role in this show in general. She's kind of a spunky character, but yeah, it gets good. It definitely gets more adult.
Yep. This is Ahsoka's such a great reflection too, because this whole show, I mean, obviously it's the Clone Wars, and everyone gets their moments. Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, the clones themselves, Yoda, Mace Windu, even Jar Jar, 3PO, R2. They all get their moments for sure, and you get background, but it all feeds into the story of how Anakin becomes Vader. And I think Ahsoka is her character development is so pivotal to his story, to his downfall, because the entirety of her character until much later, the entirety of her character is discovered in the Clone Wars. She's the chosen one's Padawan that no one ever heard of. This is as much an Ahsoka story, the Clone Wars, as it is a Vader story. And to see kind of how they start as master and apprentice, big brother, kid sister sort of thing, and how his life affects her and how the things that he's involved in with the war, with the Jedi, how it traumatizes her as she continues, as she grows.
In some
And
ways, it
it's
almost feels like
they
this show is her show. It's just kind of like a
in a way, yeah.
yeah. It's like she's the sort of like it's from her point of view a lot of times. As far as you feel
Mhm.
the most of the weight comes on her, and then towards the end of it, you start that shift towards Anakin and his decline. But yeah, it does a really good job as far as bouncing off the main characters, but her specifically is.
Absolutely.
But yeah, we
And
could
I
ramble on
mean
this
I
forever.
mean yeah, no, we absolutely could. I mean the final shot of the show is seeing what he's become without her. So yeah, I'd buy that. I mean, there are episodes without her in it. Obviously, those ones aren't about her. This is a
Yeah,
clone show, but like I would buy that if someone were to tell me that the Clone Wars arc is the story of Ahsoka Tano, I'd be like, yeah, yeah, it kind of is. It's Ahsoka Tano and her life and where it leaves Anakin at the end.
yeah, and then in the turn, I think it kind of is almost the inverse with Rebels. You see, even though he's not in it much, it's almost like you see the decisions of the Clone Wars all and the weight of those moments on both Vader
Yeah,
and
no,
Ahsoka. But yeah, it's so cool.
they They did really great. Whoever the continuity editor is between these 2 shows just recognized they're like, "Oh, we did this in season 3, and we're gonna see that again in season 4 of this other show." And I just it's really great. Whoever that continuity editor is, he was on the game. Disney should fire him full time for live action. Uh
Yeah, really.
But yeah, a lot of these themes that we talk about in these early seasons, we're not done with them. They come back. Like it's all done for a reason. It's the setup. These 3 seasons of the setup. And now we're done with the setup and it can move into the good stuff
Yeah,
like this wasn't already.
that's right. But yeah, we'll do season 4 next week. Um, thank you everybody for watching. As always,
Thank you. Always.
peace out.